A pair of family dogs recently brought a friend through their brand new pet door, a young deer. Just imagine the look on the owner's faces. Pets actually bring home snakes, befriend bears and boars, and some even strike up friendships with tigers. The internet is full of videos where stunned owners film their dog standing on the porch or by the front door with a wild deer calmly hanging out beside it. There are several possible reasons for this kind of behavior, an unobtrusive reminder to do that thing under the video, but first, let's start with the simplest explanation. From May to July, most female deer give birth to fawns, and mothers have a highly developed protective instinct. To a doe, anything that moves can seem suspicious. Sometimes the mother decides it's safer to double-check and will quietly follow a person or a dog at a safe distance. In such cases, does usually keep away or even show aggression. So that's clearly not what happened here. But if we're talking about a young, very small fawn, then a very different mechanism comes into play: imprinting by mistake. When a baby gets confused about who its mother is. Newborn fawns are particularly prone to this. While the real mother can recognize her offspring within a few hours, the fawns may take several days or longer to memorize their mother. During this time, they're especially vulnerable. Some fawns will start following any large moving object nearby, for example, a person or a dog. And sometimes it's not about dogs at all. Not only babies, but even fully grown deer may wander into a house on their own, as if to say, "Well, hello, I'll just take a look around." Why does this happen? Simply because wild animals are venturing into towns more and more often. It's easier to find food there. Trash, leftovers, bird feeders. It's not exactly a healthy diet, but for a hungry deer in winter, it'll do. Most often, it's the youngsters who behave this way. They lack experience and don't yet understand that humans can be dangerous. If a young animal has never faced a threat from people, its fear response is weak. Looking for food or warmth, the deer might come right up close, even walk inside. And there's an even sadder possibility: the animal might be sick, weak, or disoriented. In that state, the boundaries of normal behavior become very blurred. Remember when I mentioned tigers, bears, and snakes? Roll the coffee intro and let's see what happens when pets bring those kinds of friends home. Let's head over to Canada, to the province of Manitoba. This is where veterinary nurse Brittany witnessed a scene that, under normal circumstances, should have ended in disaster. A massive polar bear walked right up to a sled dog. Brittany froze, unsure of what was about to happen, and her biggest worry was the dog. But what happened next was something no one could have predicted. The bear approached and started to play. It nudged the dog with its nose, gently tapped it with its paw as if checking whether the dog would respond, and the dog didn't seem to mind at all. The whole encounter lasted around 15 minutes before the bear finally turned around and wandered off in search of food. The dog didn't look the least bit concerned. Just another Thursday, apparently. Encounters like this aren't unusual in a place often called the polar bear capital of the world, the town of Churchill. Every autumn, before Hudson Bay freezes over, bears regularly wander into town, scavenging for food, rummaging through dumpsters, and walking right between people's homes. Locals are used to having dozens of bears roaming nearby, and the bears, for their part, often don't seem afraid of humans. Despite cute moments like these, Churchill still sees plenty of cases where polar bears kill and eat dogs. Sometimes the predators just seem to be in a good mood, or to be more precise, they follow their own logic. The thing is, there's a man in town who feeds polar bears so he can show them to tourists. And the bears are clever animals. They quickly figured out what's what. Sled dogs meant food, so no dogs meant no treats. So some bears eventually stopped seeing the dogs as prey. But that doesn't mean it's safe. Some experts believe that what looks like friendly play may actually be a predator toying with its future meal. And this is extremely dangerous for the dogs. Most of the time, they're tied up and can't get away. They can't run or even step back. All they can do is stand there and endure it. Still, as the example above shows, some dogs get so used to these strange encounters that they don't even seem worried anymore. Next up is Germany, and probably the most unexpected farm friendship. Picture this: a regular herd of cows grazing peacefully when suddenly a wild boar joins them. Yes, it just walks out of the forest, strolls up to the pasture, and apparently decides, "Nice cows, I'm staying here." When livestock herder Dirk Reese spotted the newcomer, the boar looked a bit thin and clearly lost. Most likely his own group had rejected him. But the cows seemed to think the new guy was perfectly fine and welcomed him into the herd. Dirk even gave him a name, Banana. Personally, I think Banana has definitely earned your like. Now, Banana is a full-fledged part of the herd. He doesn't just wander nearby, he genuinely acts like he belongs there. And surprisingly, even people who would normally be interested in hunting a boar have been moved by his story. Reese says the locals sort of adopted the cow's attitude, and Banana now enjoys a kind of special status. If you dig deeper, pigs, both wild and domestic, are extremely social animals. They live in large groups, one adult female, several females, piglets, young males. It's a complex social structure. They don't handle solitude well. It makes them unhappy, stressed, and simply bored. But when they're placed with companions who suit them, they thrive. And Banana seems to be thriving exactly for that reason. There's also another thing. Wild boars and cows are actually similar in some ways. Both are hoofed animals, and their behavior shares a lot in common. This isn't the case of a pig befriending a lion. It's a group where everyone feels comfortable. Boars also eat grass, though they mostly enjoy rooting around for treats in the soil, so there's practically no food competition between Banana and the cows, and everyone ends up happy. Wild boars are indeed plentiful in Germany, so stories like this emerge fairly often. Here's one from Lower Saxony back in 2022. A herd of cattle was suddenly joined by a tiny boar piglet. Once again, the reason turned out to be rather sad. Shortly after the piglet appeared, a local reported finding a dead sow near the railroad tracks. Most likely it had been hit by a train. Left on its own, the young boar did what many social animals do. It went looking for a new family, and it found one in the cattle herd. At first, the cows were understandably confused by their new companion and even tried to push it away. But with time, everything settled down, and now they form a surprisingly harmonious little commune. The cows give the piglet excellent protection. It likes to stand underneath their bellies and watch passers-by and cyclists from what feels like a heavily armored shelter. When things around it get too noisy or hectic, the boar simply decides it's had enough. It turns around, slips under the pasture fence, and hides there. The fence is intentionally built so that the small boar can easily wiggle underneath, and in the evening, right on schedule, it returns to its herd. Next, we move to Washington County, where the story takes a completely unexpected turn. Early in the morning on February 5th, 2020, a dog showed up at its owner's doorstep, carrying something in its mouth. At first, the owner couldn't even figure out what this tiny creature was. It was so small and helpless that, for a moment, you might mistake it for a puppy of some large breed. But everyone was stunned when it turned out the dog had brought home a black bear cub, a real one, just 2 or 3 weeks old, practically a newborn. The cub was immediately taken to the Wildlife Center of Virginia in Waynesboro, where it could be treated and later reunited with its own kind. The center has an entire system for returning rescued cubs to wild families. Adult females wear special monitoring collars. With their help, specialists track bears, listen for sounds inside dens, and locate those that currently have cubs of the same age. If a suitable foster mom is found, the rescued cub is gently placed at the entrance of her den. In most cases, the female accepts it as her own. The maternal instinct in black bears is incredibly strong. The dog owners never figured out where this little guy came from, but incidents like this actually happen quite often. Dogs usually don't care whether the creature in front of them is a kitten, a bear cub, or a tiger cub. If a dog decides it needs to drag something home, it will. That's just how their everyday logic seems to work. And although news stories often claim that a dog rescued a bear cub, that's not entirely accurate. It's far more likely the dog stumbled upon the den while the mother bear was away, pulled the cub out, and essentially kidnapped it. In other words, it's more harmful than heroic. Experts confirm that dogs frequently disturb the nests of ground-dwelling animals simply because anything that moves sparks their curiosity. It's hard to blame them for it. But encounters between bears and dogs don't always end well. In 2011, a married couple from central Pennsylvania found themselves face-to-face with a predator. A black bear chased their dog straight into the house and attacked the owners. Rich and Angie Moyer suffered back and leg injuries, but their lives were not in danger. Their 10-year-old son was home at the time, but he wasn't involved in the incident. Richard Moyer said he woke up at 3 in the morning, as he usually did before work, to let the dog out. Brindy, a husky pit bull mix, bolted off the porch and disappeared into the woods surrounding their home in Oliver Township. Seconds later, she started barking and growling in a way that made it clear something was very wrong. Rich grabbed a spotlight and aimed it at the woods, At that moment, Brendy burst out of the darkness and sprinted toward the house, with a black bear charging right behind her. The bear chased the dog inside and then turned on the homeowner. The commotion was so loud that Angie woke up upstairs, ran out of the bedroom, and rushed to help her husband, not even understanding at first what was happening. State police and several ambulances arrived soon after, and the Moyers were taken to a Harrisburg hospital. By then, the bear had already fled the scene. Wild animals, even large predators like bears, can come much closer to people's homes than we tend to realize. A situation where a dog wanders through the woods, accidentally finds a den, and snatches a cub can escalate in the worst way possible. This time, the dog was lucky. There was no adult female nearby, but sometimes things go very differently. A full-grown bear may be close, notice the intrusion, perceive the dog as a threat, follow it back to the house, and eventually come inside. And once that happens, it's anyone's guess how it ends. Thankfully, incidents like this are rare, and much depends on the specific species. The place where the attack happened is a rural area, the kind locals describe as having one traffic light for the whole county. Bears are a normal part of the landscape there, but they don't attack very often. Black bears in Pennsylvania are considered far more timid than bears in the western United States. In most cases, a black bear will turn tail and run from a person or even a dog rather than pick a fight. Most encounters start because of dogs. Dogs run ahead, bark, provoke the bear, and once the bear catches the human scent, it usually wants nothing more than to get away. The attack in Oliver Township was an exception. It may have been a mother defending her cubs, and in those situations, the danger level shoots up instantly. So let's switch to a more lighthearted story, though this one also has its twists. This time, the main character is Allie, a German Shepherd who went viral online. One day, Allie came home, but not alone. Trotting right beside her was a baby raccoon. Allie's owner explained in the comments that it all started after a tree was cut down in their yard. A tiny raccoon, barely a week old, fell down with the branches. The family took it in, bottle fed him, and cared for it. In the post, they said that Allie and the raccoon, whom they named Rocket, had formed a special bond. The two spend a lot of time together and even sleep side by side in the garage. But here's where we have to pause and be honest. Raccoons are wild animals. They're not suited for domestic life, no matter how adorable they look. In most U.S. states, keeping raccoons as pets is actually illegal, and for good reason. According to the Humane Society of the United States, raccoons, along with foxes, skunks, and bats, are among the primary carriers of rabies. The virus can be transmitted through a single bite. Yes, we all want to believe in heartwarming stories about animals bonding, but when a wild baby tags along behind a dog all the way home, it's almost never a good sign. It usually means the mother is gone or the nest has been destroyed. Just like in this case, a fallen tree left the little one completely alone, and its survival instinct kicked in. Hungry and terrified, the little one will cling to any chance it gets. It spots a big animal nearby and thinks, "I'll follow it. It has no sense of danger at all." And this time, it was unbelievably lucky that the guide happened to be a family dog, not a wolf, a fox, or a bear. One can only guess how many young raccoons perish in the wild after choosing the wrong companion. And now we move on to stories about cats, snakes, and that classic moment when you just wanted to walk into your house but suddenly found yourself in a survival documentary. A video's gone viral showing a snake crawling out into the open right in the middle of an ordinary family home. And it happened because the cat actually lured it inside. In the video, you can see the homeowner in a rubber glove trying several times to catch the dangerous snake. And this isn't the first time. The cat's owners have posted similar incidents before. And no, this wasn't Australia, which makes it even more surprising. Though things like this happen in Australia too. When Folco Faber came back to his home in Adelaide after a trip to New Zealand, he did what anyone would do. Picked up his cat Lily, opened the blinds, and started unpacking. But the security cameras caught a very different scene. Faber shuffling across the floor in his socks while a brown mesh-patterned snake slid out from under the furniture and headed straight for his feet. Later, he admitted that he didn't notice it at first and had no idea how close he came to stepping on one of the most dangerous reptiles on the planet. He only grasped what was happening when he glanced down and spotted the snake's dark brown body. But in his case, the snake got into the house on its own. But generally speaking, there's a rule of thumb: cats bringing home living or not-so-living creatures is classic behavior. If you have an outdoor cat, sooner or later, it'll bring you a gift. And it will either be a fresh kill or, worse yet, a badly injured victim you'll have to chase around the house. Cats don't do this just for food. Hunting is their way of practicing and teaching their young. It helps them sharpen their skills and show off what capable little predators they are. That's why it doesn't really matter what they drag home: a mouse, a bird, a frog, an insect, or even a snake. This behavior is especially common in female cats. Their maternal instinct stays active even if they don't have kittens of their own. Some animal behavior experts believe that when a cat brings home live prey, she's actually trying to teach her human how to hunt. In her eyes, you're the clueless kitten who really needs a lesson. And snakes are far more common around people than we think. During the day, they warm up in the sun, gather energy, and get ready for night hunting. They hide under rocks, concrete slabs, fallen logs, wood piles, basically in any cluttered spot. In other words, exactly the places outdoor cats love to explore, so the chances of a cat catching a snake and bringing it inside are actually quite high. And the scariest part isn't even the snake itself. It's where it might end up in its panic. In the bathroom, under the couch, in a closet, under a pillow. Basically anywhere it can squeeze into while trying to hide. And it's not just cats who bring presents. Dogs have their own ways of surprising you as well. For Casey, a Kansas local and owner of a 9-month-old golden retriever named Scout, surprise encounters with snakes have become almost routine. The first time, Scout brought her a live but sluggish snake, which she managed to release. But the very next day, he showed up with another one in his mouth right as Casey was getting out of her car. The first time, Scout even tried to play with the snake in the yard. The second time, the snake was already dead, and Scout buried it in the garden. Casey says she isn't sure whether he killed it. The dog showed no aggression, and there were no bite marks. It's possible the snake was already injured. Part of its tail was missing. Dogs are known for dragging all kinds of things home after all. Scout, for example, likes hauling logs, bits of metal he finds in the woodpile, bones, and once even presented Casey with a skunk, looking unbelievably proud of himself. He's also been seen playing with mice. But sometimes this canine habit can take a really unpleasant turn. Let's head over to South Florida, where dogs have also discovered some very unconventional toys. So unconventional that locals now see it as just another slice of Florida life. A dog named Shelby became locally famous for playing fetch with iguanas. I'm not kidding. A video shot in Boynton Beach shows her happily sprinting down the street with a huge iguana in her mouth. The guy who filmed the scene, Kramer, said Shelby constantly drags them home as if they were ordinary sticks. And then the iguanas simply scatter, if they're still capable of running at all. According to her owner, it's pure hunting instinct. The same drive that makes a dog chase possums. But it's important to understand the context. South Florida is practically overrun with green iguanas. Their numbers keep rising, and in many neighborhoods, they've become a serious nuisance. People spend a lot of money trying to keep them away from their homes. They're a harmful, non-native species. Florida officials even officially encourage residents to kill these animals when possible on their property and on public land. And unfortunately, some people don't choose the most humane methods. They sick their dogs on the iguanas and let them finish the job. So not every story here is as cute and harmless as Shelby's. Now let's jump all the way to Arizona, where a tiny baby fox decided that a terrier was its mom. The Caballero family from Tempe was out on their usual walk with their dog Olive when a little gray fox suddenly tagged along. It was so small he could fit in 2 hands, barely about 8 inches long. Later, it turned out that it was only around 6 weeks old. The little fox trailed them across the whole neighborhood, sticking right by their heels. It genuinely looked like it had confused Olive for its mom, or at least for another fox. When the family got back home, their irrigation system was on, and the kid immediately darted over to drink. The poor thing was clearly dehydrated. The fact that the kid had wandered so far from its mother was alarming. Foxes are social animals that stay together in family groups. So a lone baby at that age is a clear sign of trouble. That's why the family decided to contact the Southwest Wildlife Conservation Center. The fox was taken to the center where they initially fed it with a syringe, and later it began confidently eating from a bowl. And here's the important point. Sometimes it looks like a dog brings home a friend, but cases like this are usually just a mix-up. A weak, dehydrated baby who's been without its parents for a long time may see a dog and assume it's its mother, or at least another fox. It seeks protection and follows her. So it's more accurate to say that the baby fox followed the dog home, not that the dog brought him. It's basically the same pattern you see with abandoned fawns. And finally, here's a story that at first sounded completely unreal to me. But yes, things like this really happen. A dog lives with 2 tigers, and everyone's perfectly fine with it. At the Tianjin Zoo in Tongling, keepers once noticed that a tiger cub named Tontong was struggling emotionally. In simple terms, he was diagnosed with loneliness. His mother rejected him right after birth, so the staff had to separate them. But tiger cubs, like all young animals, need social contact. So the team decided to find him a companion of his own age. That's how he ended up with a puppy named Huang Huang, a perfect playmate born around the same time. Later, another tiger cub joined the little crew, and here's the incredible part. 7 years have passed and the trio still behave like real brothers. They play, sleep, and eat together. Sure, the tigers sometimes get moody, they are predators after all. But even when scuffles break out, they somehow manage to avoid hunting the smallest member of the group, Huang Huang. It's as if he's become the unofficial king of their enclosure. And this wasn't the only story like that. Back in 2008, a golden retriever named Isabella saved a small rural zoo in Kansas. 3 white tiger cubs had just been born there, but within only 15 hours, their mother rejected them completely. This happens quite often in zoos. Not all predators accept their offspring. At the time, Isabella was only a year old. She'd just finished nursing her own 2 puppies, so the staff decided to see whether she could act as a surrogate mother for the tiger cubs. And she did. The babies bonded with her quickly and thrived on her milk. It became a real-life story about a dog who adopted 3 tigers. The tiger cubs lived with Isabella for a whole year. Eventually, though, they had to be separated. Not because they turned aggressive, but simply because they had grown into 150-pound cats. They were physically much larger than their adoptive mom, and the staff decided it was safer to separate them to protect the dog. You owe me a like. See you later.